to the next question. Describe any 5 features of a federal government. See, I would say federal government means you have to give a very good introduction. Federal means division of power at 2 or more tiers or 2 or more levels between the government. So start with a good definition of federal government. Then tell that yes, you're going to explain the 5 features. So when you talk about the 5 features, the very first feature is please ensure that the features that you're going to mark have a separate phrase that's going to separate it from the content that you're going to write. For example, I'm talking about the first key feature, that there are 2 or more levels of government. Okay? You are going to explain that it's going to be state level, it's going to be at the provincial level, or maybe at the local level. Second important point of constitution is about the constitutional status, that there is constitutional recognition awarded to the national laws, to the, I would say, national government and the state government. They operate in their own territory, in their own area of operation of performance, and they have their performance areas is explicitly mentioned, clearly mentioned in the Constitution of India. So it's like their jurisdiction is with the respective level of the government. If it's related to pan-India, it's going to be the central government. If it's just related to the territory, it's going to be the state government. Then there's independence of judiciary. Just in case you want to interpret the constitution, just in case there's a dispute between different levels of the government, judiciary is going to come handy. It's going to solve the purpose. Then yes, these 2 government, in order to ensure that they support themselves, in order to ensure that they do really well in the economic field and don't ask for financial credit from each other, this is an important feature of financial autonomy is given in case of a federal government. And then last important point is there is a clear distribution of power. Though you cannot amend the constitution at times that easily, but however, their own jurisdiction, their own area of operation is clearly demarcated, that which subjects can they legislate on, what is their jurisdiction, what is their a reference point that they can refer or ask, make laws on. So that has been made pretty clear when we talk about the federal form of government. So we've talked about it. Let's revise once again. The very first one is 2 or more levels of government. Then there's constitutional status. Then we've talked about the independence of judiciary, financial autonomy, and finally distribution of powers. Now, why I am stressing on the point that guys, you need to remember the key phrases is, if you remember those key phrases, it's gonna help you frame the answer even if you don't know the entire context. So please, in social studies, try to memorize the key pointers or the key phrases for that matter. Next is explain any 4 features of federalism. Like we've just explained 5 features of federal government. Similarly, they've asked 4 features of federalism. Same points you're going to give in this case also, but in federalism, you can say that courts have the power to interpret the constitution. That is the additional point you guys can mention, that fundamental provisions are also there in the constitution that cannot be changed unilaterally. It's like the central and the state government have to agree on this, that okay, now we're going to amend the constitution, take some laws in or bring in some changes that are acceptable to both the governments. So yes, more or less it's going to be on the same line that we just discussed. Moving on to the next question. Distinguish between coming together and holding together type of federation. So you have to distinguish. Though we've discussed this question, now I wanted to bring to your notice, guys, when they're asking you to differentiate, to distinguish, try to put your points across in the form of difference chart. For example, coming together of federation, if I talk about, you're supposed to give examples in both the cases. Then you're going to talk that yes, it involves independence of states, whereas here the states may not be independence or autonomy might not be given to the state. Similarly, there in this case, the units try to increase their security, whereas in this case, there is, I would say, absence of pooling their sovereignty, because they're not coming together. It's like they've been forced to come together. For example, in this case, after India got independence, the princely states were brought under the Indian Union under the efforts of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, who's known as the Iron Man of India. So the states were not willing to come together, whereas in this case, when I talk about USA or countries like that, may it be the central government, may it be the state government, they have sort of equal powers and they are equally strong. May it be the central, may it be the state government. So you can differentiate it. This is a sufficient answer when this question has been asked for a 5-mark question. You can add 2 to 3 more, 1 more point at least, and then you're done. If it's for a 3-mark, yes, you can write, you can skip a point. However, if the question is asked for 5 marks, please ensure that you write all the relevant points accordingly. Okay, so, and before you jump on to answer like that, please ensure that you give a good introduction that's going to fetch you more marks by giving the definition of federation, or what do you understand by federal form of government. So give an introduction to it and then kickstart with a difference chart. Putting the heading across, don't forget to mention that yes, here you're going to talk about coming together and here you're going to talk about holding together of federation. Okay, so let's jump on to the next question in this case. The creation of linguistic states, that means states formed on the basis of language, was the first and major test for democratic politics in our country. You have to justify the statement. Yes, language of course plays a very important role, and we need to safeguard the languages, every language, every culture, every minority. So following this belief, we've accepted that there are 22 scheduled languages given in 8th schedule of India. It's like Hindi inclusive of 21 other languages that are recognized as scheduled languages for the constitution. Now they've asked, I'm going to go back to the question. So you've talked about scheduled languages. They've asked that yes, there has been creation of linguistic states. It was the first and the major test for democratic politics, like, segregating the states yet retaining the identity. So listen, our country, the main feature when it comes to India's language policy is each state might have its own official language, but our constitution has not provided the status of, please guys understand this, it's very important. Our constitution has not provided for the status of any national language. Yet we have official language status that's given to Hindi. Official language is of course Hindi, and we were supposed to discontinue the use of English 15 years after the commencement of the constitution. Like from 1950, they decided that they won't be using English from 1950 after 1965. But however, we did not discontinue the use of English language even after 15 years. We still use English as the official language. Second important point that you can give, next important point is that besides Hindi, we have, like we've mentioned in the introduction, we have scheduled language. The constitution provides the use of Hindi and English for official purpose, like I just told you. And most of the, the government works, like I told you, is going to take place in the concerned language of that particular state. So it's never though the government has made a lot of effort for the promotion of Hindi as the official language, but that does not mean that in every non-Hindi speaking state, especially when it comes to South India, we've been forcing them to speak in Hindi, or we've been promoting the practice that of course Hindi is the national language, you're supposed to respect that. Nothing of that sort has been done. Though the states have been divided on linguistic lines, but the framing of this policy, the language policy, yet tested India's spirit of federalism once again. It sort of brought to picture that we respect other nations, we respect our citizens, the minority section, and we straight away said that, you know, and like it inspires the confidence in different language speaking people that no language will be imposed on them, because we've never imposed even Hindi as the national language. So in a way, language policy has strengthened the unity and integrity, because it's like each one to its own. It's like we've declared an official language, yet we're not forcing you to use yours, this language. You are allowed to use your own language, and you can function in your own state in your own particular language. But here again, I would like you to notice the fact that all the, you know, if you want to place a petition in the judiciary, it's going to be in English language. However, if you guys are going to in the judiciary basically follows a line of pattern. It follows for its jurisdiction, for its announcement of punishment and all. It's always and always English. So the official language for judiciary is English. However, the national language, there's no status given to national language. It's just the official language, that is Hindi and English. Okay.